Good afternoon. I'm meteorologist Danielle Moss with a weather impact update for you. Today has definitely been a day where we've been anticipating the rainfall to arrive, and here we are. We are at that moment. Here's a look at our current radar. What we are looking at, we do have some pretty heavy rainfall moving through northwest Georgia, but our main focus at this very time, there is a severe thunderstorm warning that we are continuing to monitor. It is for portions of really Acworth. It's in Cherokee County, Cobb County, as well as Bartow County. That is the worst part of the storm, right along 575. In fact, heavy rainfall, hail, all been reported, high winds as well. I'm starting to see some power outages come in, as well as reports that have been already submitted. In fact, if I take a look into our chat with our weather service, one of the things that they have already noticed, dime to quarter size hail in southwestern Cherokee County, mainly along Highway 92 from Acworth just west of Woodstock, and that's at Bells Ferry Road and Highway 92. So that's right through the heart of Cherokee County and going into Cobb County. So if I zoom in just a little bit so we can get a closer look on this severe thunderstorm warning, this is a storm that we are concerned about right now. Definitely some P to quarter size hail has been reported. And the good news is it's starting to weaken just a little bit. They're going to keep this warning in effect until around 2:45, but it is a very strong thunderstorm. Let me read the bulletin for you so that you all will have the latest information, because they did just extend it just ever so slightly. They issued this one, the brand new one, at 2:36 p.m. and it is for a severe thunderstorm that was located over Kennesaw State, or 7 miles north of Marietta, moving east at 15 miles an hour. 60-mile-an-hour winds and dime-sized hail have been reported. Expect damage to roofs, siding, and trees. The locations impacted include Kennesaw, Woodstock, Lebanon, Kellogg Creek, Sandy Plains, Oak Grove, Kennesaw State University, and Hobgood Park. So a lot of people are out and about this Saturday afternoon. A lot of people are in town. Good news is Kennesaw State is playing away today. However, this storm is definitely a cause for concern. In fact, I'm going to put on some of our hail tracks so we can see if this hail has been tracking. I'm actually going to turn the sound on my phone too. So if you hear my phone go off, that is just going to be a notification from the National Weather Service. Here it is. This is a look at our hail tracks. I think this is very interesting. This lets us see the size of hail that's in the storm from our radar. And as you can see, the blue, dark blue, that's around 1-inch size hail. That's right along Hickory Grove Road, Woodstock Road, McCullum Parkway, right near Kennesaw, Acworth, moving along 75, really close to 575, right where that split ends. So make sure, if you have anyone that are out and about in this area, make sure they are aware of that. Even going through Mars Hill, Old Stylesboro Road, Kemp Ridge Road, that's around 1/2 inch size of hail. So you definitely could hear it hitting your windshield at the very least. But this inch, that is what's concerning. That could definitely do some damage, and anywhere between that 1/2 inch to 1 inch size could do some damage. You definitely want to make sure that people are aware of that. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit on this really dark blue. This is really close to 75, but it is near Hickory Grove Road Northwest and Baker Road. So that's also a very heavily populated area there in Cobb County and really in Cherokee County as well. So if I zoom out just a little bit, that's not the only place that's getting some hail. In fact, over in Dallas, just west of that area, almost has inch-size hail as well. This is your hail track, so that lets you see exactly where that is. That is really going along Highway 61 near Dallas, Hanlon, Vista Lake Drive, that big blue spot. That's really just a little bit over 1/2 inch, but not quite an inch size hail for your hail tracks in that area. And if I zoom out just a little bit more to take a peek at the other storms that are happening, because this is not the only rain, that we are watching. I'm turning the lightning off, even though that is a big part of this storm and this weather story as well. There's a lot of rain in North Georgia, not just in North Georgia. We're also starting to see some of it sink further past metro Atlanta. So some of these isolated showers are really starting to develop in portions of DeKalb County, South Fulton as well. They just issued a strong weather statement. That means that a storm is on the stronger side. That's near Heard and Carroll County. So that's in West Georgia. That's along the I-20 corridor. So some of these storms are definitely on the stronger side, and you can kind of see them kind of taking form. This is our secondary really line of storms that we were watching. We had one line go through earlier. This is all part of a cold front. After this rain passes through this evening, we will be dry for most of next week, but we do have to get through this current rainfall right now. Once again, this is a live radar. If you are just joining us, I know we pushed out a push notification. We are streaming because there is a severe thunderstorm warning in portions of Cobb and Cherokee County, really near Ackworth, Georgia, and Kennesaw as well. And that warning is until 2:45 p.m. Right now, heavy rainfall, definitely a concern, as well as the hail size. So I'm going to go back in on this severe thunderstorm warning specifically because that has my concern here, especially with the hail tracks and the hail reports that we've been seeing. This is a look at our hail tracks. But I want to look at the hail size. Sometimes it takes a moment for it to load. But that's good if it's not there, it goes. So this is the current storm. So this is about 1/2 inch hail. This is on the other side of 75 and 575. So it has finally moved out of Cobb and really Ackworth and Cherokee, but it's still in Cherokee County, just not in the Ackworth portion of it. Yeah, so this is less than an inch, still about 1/2 inch, but still a good clip of the storm there. It's still very strong. We're not seeing anything that's too concerning as far as velocity is concerned. The lightning strikes is another thing that we'll talk about here in a second, but here's a better look at that severe thunderstorm warning. Once again, this is for Cobb and Cherokee until 2:45. They did have Bartow included, but they took it out once that main line of storms moved through. What we're looking at now is the velocity. So what we look at in this, with this graphic, is it lets us see how the winds are doing. Are the winds moving away from each other? Are we seeing any rotation? You can see towards and away. Hey, there you go. They just expired that. It is 2:45 p.m. So that's good. They did not extend it, but we do watch to see if any of those winds are making any rotation. That's not what we're seeing. This is not a tornado threat that we are concerned about today. Our concern is the heavy rain and the lightning strikes and that hail. In fact, if I put the lightning strikes back on, I turn the radar on, you can see how much cloud to ground lightning we've had in about 15 minutes here. And that's a lot in that one little area. And this is dangerous too. Now, there's nothing you can do about lightning. You just have to make sure that you're going inside and staying away from windows, because yesterday even we saw reports of some lightning that struck a ground right outside of a truck, and that was in Jefferson. So very close call there. No one was injured, but this lightning, especially with it being kind of humid outside, that is another threat for some of this storm activity that we're continuing to watch. Brand new special weather statement. This is for Gwinnett County through 3:00 p.m. The one for Heard and Carroll County, those are both for 3:00 p.m. too. Both of those storms are basically saying the same thing. I'll read the bulletin just so that we are aware. And in Gwinnett County, Lawrenceville, Duluth, Sugar Hill, Suwanee, and Beaufort, that's until 3:00 p.m. And this is for winds up to 40 miles an hour, P-size hail, and frequent cloud to ground lightning. So like exactly what I was saying. So that is going to be in this area. Suwanee, Sugar Hill, Big Creek. So those are the storms that we're watching. This is really just one big storm system that's starting to kind of merge. These cells are starting to merge just a little bit. So that's what we are paying close attention to. And I just got another notification. I just want to make sure that I am up to date. They're just saying, thank you for the quick reports. The emergency managers are doing a great job of making sure that all of these reports are coming in a timely fashion. I'm going to back this back out just a little bit and take a wider look across our metro viewing area, because this is not the only rainfall. And even though that severe thunderstorm warning has expired, we're streaming, so that gives us a little bit more wiggle room to kind of just talk and walk through the storms together and what I am watching. So right now, heavy rainfall moving through northwest Georgia. You can see it literally stretches down from Chattanooga all the way down into metro Atlanta. Some of these storms are on the stronger side. This cell that you're starting to see, it literally were two small cells and they kind of merged together along 575. It dropped some pretty decent sized hail. Haven't heard of any damage report. Had some pretty strong lightning as well. Still no damage reports, no injury reports so far, so that's good news as of right now. And then even into East Georgia and in the North Georgia mountains, heavy rainfall there, and even a strong storm moving through portions of Gwinnett County. Now in West Georgia, I'll zoom in and move it around for us just a little bit. This is looking to West Georgia. Heard and Carroll counties, we're seeing some stronger thunderstorms in this area as well, right along the I-20 corridor. That's bringing some pretty heavy rainfall. And even further south than that, in near LaGrange, we're seeing some pretty decent storms really starting to form. So there's a lot of rainfall happening right now around the area. This is just one of those times where you want to make sure that you are weather aware. The good news is, I know it's 2:48 p.m. So a lot of people, the UGA game just started. In fact, so let's take a look over in Athens, which is probably good that they started that game a little bit earlier. They were set to start at 3:30 and they moved that time up to 2:30 because of the weather. And as of right now, it's not raining. You can see that's a look into Athens. In fact, let me put one of these cameras in. That's one of my favorite parts about doing these live streams is I can do all this stuff in real time and give you guys an idea of how my weather brain works when I need it to work. Let's bring this down and a little bit further. Here we are. Okay, this is looking to Truist Park. So that storm that we were looking at, and just for reference, I'm going to bring up the radar. Okay. Truist Park is in this area. Right, so there is a storm approaching very quickly, and that's a pretty good sized storm too. I wouldn't be surprised if this one actually goes severe just by the shaping of it. But this is a storm that's approaching Truist Park, when Truist Park is really in this area right here. So if I pull up this camera and show you guys what it looks like at Truist Park, this is a look into our Truist Park camera. You can see some of the ominous clouds there. It's probably raining back off. You can kind of see it. That's a little bit of rainfall back, and you can't really see the mountains. But then over to really the west side of this camera, we're not seeing, any rainfall there. There's people walking down at the Battery. It's just that time of the year where people want to be out and about. And I know that the Braves played yesterday. You saw that camera bounce. The winds are getting higher, so they are starting to pick up. So this is going to be a camera that we're going to continue to watch here. Let's pull up another camera though, so that we can see Athens. That is here. Channel 3. Boom. There we go. This is a look at the UGA game, and you can see people are already in their seats. The game has just started 20 minutes ago or so, and so the game is going on, but you can see the treetops swaying in the wind there. The rain is on the way. Hopefully, fingers crossed that we don't see any severe weather happening in that area, but it is going to be a very close call. Let's take a look into Blue Ridge because there was some rainfall in the North Georgia mountains. I don't think this camera is going to capture any rain just yet. The streets are wet, so the storm just moved through. We just missed it. Sorry if you're wanting to see it, but we just missed that storm. Just normal rainfall. People are back out walking, enjoying the rest of their evening, honestly, for the next few hours. And I'll go through our futurecast so you can see what we are anticipating for the rest of tonight. Let's take a look into Midtown tonight with our Georgia Tech camera. They also have a game, and their game is at 3:30. I'm trying to see if people are coming in the stadium or leaving the stadium. It looks like they're still trying to file in, but unfortunately, the clouds, I don't know. That one's going to be a close call, that Georgia Tech game. Hopefully, the lightning will hold off. I know it is not any fun playing or watching a game in the rain, but it looks like it might be one of those days. Here is a look into Newnan. There's the rain. Finally, a camera with a little bit of rain. Those are big, juicy raindrops. You can see them falling. this is just what you can expect over the next few hours. Unfortunately, it's just going to be one of those evenings where we are tracking a lot of rain showers and a lot of isolated, it's really scattered showers. Yesterday we saw more isolated showers, and today we're definitely looking at scattered. This camera is very telling of the weather story as well. You can see that rainfall picking up. Look there. That is a look at our Northside Drive camera. These clouds are definitely churning away. You can kind of see them moving there in the distance. It's raining off. It's not raining right now on Georgia 400 and 285, but it is definitely raining. And the traffic this afternoon, it is crazy. They're doing construction. It's about to rain. So if you are in town, welcome to Atlanta. Just make sure that you have your patience with you. I hope you have it. You can literally see those clouds are very ominous there. So that's going to be something that we're going to continue to watch. In fact, I'm going to see if I can pull up the radar and take a look at that storm, because that is, you can see our camera kind of having a nice little bounce to it. So let's take a look at that storm. Sandy Springs. There it is. It is off in the distance, so it's not quite there yet. But it is going to be headed that way. Okay. Let's take a look at the perimeter though, and the rain that's happening around Metro Atlanta. It's not quite raining. We saw our Georgia Tech camera. It's not quite raining in Midtown just yet, but the rainfall is coming. Unfortunately for Clayton County, they're already getting a little bit of rain. Even at East Point, South Fulton, they're getting some rain showers as well. Portions of DeKalb County off. I mean, unfortunately, Snellville, Decatur, Tucker, Reed Ann, they're all getting some rain. In fact, we have a camera there as well. I'll pull that one up so that you can see it. But honestly, this north side camera is probably the least, that's the camera that we're gonna have to continue to watch for a storm that could be developing. It is humid outside, so some of these storms, as they continue to kind of develop and push through the city this evening, they could be on the stronger side. That's another reason why we've seen so many strong thunderstorm statements. They call them special weather statements. They issue them when they don't quite meet that severe weather criteria. But we have seen a severe thunderstorm warning already for Cherokee and Cobb and Bartow counties. They took Bartow County out, they took Cherokee and Cobb County out, but during that time period, we had plenty of reports of hail, high winds, and power outages as well. So what you're seeing right now is we're watching these storms as they kind of roll through. This is a live look at our Northside Hospital and Georgia 400 and 285 camera. The worst of the storm has not got quite over the city just yet, but it is headed our way. If you do hear my phone going off, that is literally just updates from the National Weather Service. I'm going to see what our traffic cameras are showing right now. This is I-20 West in Fulton County. It's not wet there. I'm not sure what cameras are programmed in here, so we're just clicking along together. This is 75 South past Howell Mills. So this is going right through the heart of the city. Not raining there yet either. I know it's not the best camera, but these are courtesy of GDOT. Not quite the best, but it is dry. I will say that the traffic coming in was definitely slow and go, especially after you get on 85 right through the downtown connector. So this is 85 South at Pleasant Hill Road. That's dry too. And this is in Gwinnett. So some places seeing rain and some places aren't. That's just the name of the game for today. And that's what we're going to continue to see over the next few hours. I'll give you another wider look into some of the storms and showers that we are starting to see develop. And right now, like East Georgia, not seeing any rainfall at all. But once all of these storms start to conjoin together, they start to really merge and you start to see them kind of gaining strength, they're going to continue to push eastward. So Athens, you'll be seeing some rainfall, as well as portions of Eatonton, Central Circle, Milledgeville. All those places are going to get rainfall today. But right now, we're just seeing them be more isolated in nature, more scattered in nature, and then we'll start to see the rest of that front pass through. So if you're wondering, when is the rest of the rainfall coming through, I will pull up our forecast track right now and walk you through that. I'm going to start it a little bit later. Here we go. Okay. That is another special weather statement for Carroll and Heard counties. So this is what our forecast track is showing that's happening right now, which is almost accurate. The storms are a little bit further back. So what I would say, if you're watching this, just maybe allow an hour difference or so as far as the rainfall arriving in your area, in your town. So Athens, I would say this says Saturday at 5, maybe Saturday at 6 o'clock, we start to see some of that rainfall really moving in across Sanford Stadium. Then as we continue to pull it through, at 7 p.m., we start to really dry out. So we have until now, which is 2:57 p.m. until around 7 o'clock, where we start to see some of that rainfall really start to taper off. Then as you prepare for your Sunday, we will start to see some of the cloud cover moving on out of here. And by Sunday morning, it's going to be cool, it's going to be clear, and it's going to be dry for your Sunday morning. Then as we continue to pull this through for your Sunday afternoon, a lot of sunny skies. We could be seeing some rain, but it looks like we're going to be mostly dry for your Sunday, even as we head into your Monday. So forecast track still agreeing with what we were forecasting for yesterday. And that is once this rainfall moves through at 7 o'clock, that's when we'll be completely done with the rain. Then you can anticipate us to be drying out and cooling off. Another look at our radar. I wanted to take a wider look across the southeast while we are here, because a lot of people are traveling. There's a lot of games that are close by. This is a look at the entire front. You can see there's some severe storms moving through the Carolinas as well. So we're not the only ones feeling the impact of this rain. You can see there's a severe thunderstorm warning right at the state line of Carolina and also Virginia. We are seeing more of the stronger storms. This is just normal heavy rain, but these are the ones that you have to keep your eye on. You can see all the lightning strikes that are involved in those storms as well. Unfortunately, they're just continuing to march right along. And a closer look into Tennessee. They had severe weather yesterday. We're getting in on that severe weather action today. I'm still continuing to see some of those heavy downpours, and I'm sure if you are at your house and you are thinking what is going on outside, you're hearing the rumbles of thunder, you might even be seeing the lightning flashes, just remember, go inside, try to stay away from those windows, make sure that you are being safe during this time. And turn on your weather radio. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You might be getting ready to take a nap. Turn on your weather radio. Make sure you have multiple ways to get notifications, just in case some of these storms end up being a little bit past the strong thunderstorm phase. But as of right now, we're not seeing anything that's too concerning. I'm going to continue to watch these storms, specifically this one storm that is moving near Roswell and headed its way, and it's starting to merge over just a little bit with that storm that's in Suwannee and getting close to Sugar Hill. That's Gwinnett County as well. So we're going to continue to watch these storms right now. And if there is another severe thunderstorm warning issued, I will pop back on and give you another update. But for now, I'm going to turn on the radar loop so that you all can see exactly what's happening outside and you all can know what's going on. It'll take me 1 second. It's going to go to a screen that says stream has ended, but stay right here. We're going to continue to stream some of our radar loops. I'm meteorologist Danielle Moss. I'm here with you for the evening. You're stuck with me, but I'm going to keep you safe as possible, and I'll bring you another update very, very soon. Good afternoon. I'm meteorologist Danielle Moss with a weather impact update for you. It has definitely been one of those busy afternoons where all of a sudden all of this weather just kind of popped up at one time, and it was moving very quickly through metro Atlanta, and we're continuing to track it all. Here's a look at our current live radar. You can see multiple lightning strikes moving through northeast Georgia. We're even seeing a severe thunderstorm warning in portions of South Carolina. Heavy rainfall moving through Gainesville, and now the storms are approaching Athens. In fact, let's go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. Our source producer, she told me what the criteria is for if they have to delay a game, and it's if a lightning strike is within 8 miles, and we're starting to see that lightning inch its way closer and closer. I will say that in our weather service chat, they were talking, and they did say that the nearest lightning strike was about 20 miles east, but it's definitely getting closer. I'm continuing to monitor that chat so that while I talk to you, I can bring you the latest updates. As of right now, what we are watching for are some of these storms that continue to be on the stronger side. We had a nice outflow boundary that pushed through, and that kind of caused some of these storms to be less strong. So they were below the severe limits, but some of them have actually been strong enough for the National Weather Service to issue a special weather statement. So as of right now, we're going to be monitoring some of those hot spots. So there's a game that's really ongoing. It's about halftime right now at UGA. That's a very big game. A lot of people are there. In fact, let's take a look at our camera while we are here. This is a look at our live camera. This is in downtown Atlanta, really Northside Hospital, Sandy Springs area. You can see the King and Queen building. That looks much better than what we were looking at a little bit earlier. I want to pull up our Athens camera, and that is over here. There it is. That's looking at our Athens camera. You can see people are still sitting in the seats. We're not looking at any rainfall that has arrived just yet, I don't think. The trees are moving just a little bit, but it has not started raining, at least not hard enough for us to see, but that's going to be changing very, very soon. Let's go back to our radar and take a peek at our radar to show what we are continuing to watch and monitor. Some of the rain that was down in LaGrange, that has since calmed down as well. In fact, here, I'll draw on the screen so you guys can see when I talk about the outflow boundary, what I am referring to. It's really this line right in here. So I drew the arrow right on top of it. This outflow boundary is keeping our severe weather limit down just a little bit, which is great news. I know no one wants to deal with severe weather, so having that come through ahead of these storms, that has really helps the environment. Now, we are still dealing with rain, so that could mess up some plans. In fact, if we take a closer look into metro Atlanta, that's one of the things that we are watching as well, because there is a game at Georgia Tech. That game started at 2:30. They were in a rain delay. We did hear that they should be starting back up at 4:05 p.m. That's in really now, right now. If you're watching on streaming, then it's a little bit delayed. But right now, the Georgia Tech game should be getting ready to start again. So let's take a look there. But you can see around the perimeter, around the 285 perimeter, we're seeing some rainfall in Atlanta, Fulton County. You just saw how that storm just pulsed up into Cobb County. We'll take a look at that second. Let's get into this Georgia Tech camera as I knock our clicker over here. This is I gotta change camera first. Georgia Tech. And pull it back up. There it is. So we're starting to see people coming back in the stands, which is great. You can see people on the sidelines. The traffic is really bad going down into the connector. I think our producer said there's only one lane open. So a lot of people are probably delayed getting to that game. Students on campus, obviously, but still, the good news is they are starting to get back into the stadium so that they can go ahead and get that game underway. Now, one of the things that we were also looking for are the lightning strikes that are involved in this. And that has been the thing that we've been most concerned about, has been the lightning strikes. What you're seeing right now, there was a very strong storm that was moving through this area. This is right at the tip top of Ackworth, Georgia, in Cobb County, Cherokee County, and Bartow County. And we were seeing a lot of heavy rain, a lot of lightning strikes, and we even heard of some reports of some pea-sized hail. We're not seeing that anymore. All of that rain has moved over to East Georgia, and I will circle that so you all can see exactly what we are talking about in this area as well. So where you see that big old blob, this is where we're keeping our eye on right now, just some normal rainfall. And unfortunately, Athens is in the mix there, but severe weather right now is not in the conversation. Could the winds be high? Absolutely. Winds could be around 40 miles an hour. They could even be around 50 miles an hour. Could you see some hail? Maybe, but maybe it should be less than an inch. Maybe you hear some high winds. Maybe you hear a rumble of thunder or a lightning strike or two. That's all possible. But as of right now, we're not looking at any severe weather. In fact, I turned the lightning strikes back on. I do want to zoom into this storm that is south of Atlanta, just north of McDonough, moving through Henry County. This storm it pulsed up very fast. So heavy rainfall, a lot of lightning strikes involved in there. Let's see if we can find any hail. This is a hail size. Yeah, there's some pretty decent hail. I'll even circle that for you guys to see. So it's a little bit easier there because it's gray and white, but this is the hail, and by our legend, it's about 1/2 inch, which is about pea-sized hail. So there's some hail moving through there. So definitely a pretty strong storm there. And that is just east of Stockbridge. And if let's see if I can zoom in and get yeah, it's just east of Stockbridge near Miller's Mill. You're looking at Fairview Road right now. So that's where the strongest of the storm is. Just pea-sized hail, high winds, I'm sure. Let's take a look and make sure our winds are behaving. When we say that, we want to make sure that the winds are not causing concern for any rotation, but the atmosphere is not going to be something that we're looking at tornadoes. This is just like what we like to look at all of our severe weather factors to just make sure that you guys are safe and you know exactly what you can expect. But right now it's just normal rainfall, but unfortunately the heaviest of the rain and the strongest of the storm is really right in this area, really right in the center of it between Stockbridge and Kellytown. And that's where we have to keep our eye on. And that's just causing some hail for sure and some heavy rainfall. But that's about it. We got another message, and okay, there's the official. They are now under a lightning delay at University of Georgia. So just make sure that if you know anyone, make sure that they know that the lightning delay is active. I'm going to make sure that everyone knows that here in our building. Now, it was halftime. I don't know where they stand at the game right now. Let's pull that camera back up to see if we see people moving around. That is Georgia Tech that you're seeing there. And Athens is here. There we go. So, yep, you can see the people getting out of there. There is a lightning delay in effect now for the UGA game. So we kind of knew that was going to happen. We are just kind of anticipating it. That's the big thing right now. Lightning, heavy rainfall, and some pea-sized hail. That's what we're seeing across Metro Atlanta. If you do want to know what's going to be happening within the next few hours, let's take you through Futurecast so you can see exactly what you can expect and going forward throughout the rest of this evening and into tonight. Here is a look at our Futurecast track, the updated model run, which is right on cue. You can see the heavy rainfall that's moving through Athens. It's going to be coming that way very shortly. You can see the stronger storms that are south of Atlanta moving close to Covington. All of that is going to be happening here in the next 30 minutes or so. So as I drag this through, by 8 p.m., we'll be completely dry. So you don't have to worry about this overnight. This is not an overnight event. And it's not going to ruin your Sunday plans either. In fact, as we continue to drag this through, we'll experience some clearing and some cooling overnight tonight as you prepare for your Sunday. And then Sunday morning, if you have any early Sunday morning plans, it's going to be a little bit brisk out there into the low 60s. And then as you get ready to get into the 10, 11 a.m. hour, that's going to be around the low 70s, which is really typical for this time of the year. And then as far as your highs are concerned, it's going to be cooler than what we were today. This is a cold front that's moving through, and that is why we are seeing this rainfall arrive. Here is a look at what's happening, not just here in Georgia, but across the southeast. And I will zoom out just a little bit more so we can all see. Heavy rainfall moving through portions of Kentucky, Tennessee, even some severe thunderstorm warnings moving through Virginia, as well as South Carolina. But here at home, we are just dealing with rain. I'm reading a message from the National Weather Service. They are estimating an hour and a half for the lightning risk to be gone from the UGA Stadium. So they have another hour and a half before they are completely clear from the weather there. But here we go. This is a look at that rainfall across the southeast. Taking a closer look here at home. This is all a part of a cold front once again. So you just need to make sure that you are prepared over the next few hours in case you do have to go out and make plans. What we are concerned about will be the heavy rainfall right now. That is the one that we are keeping our eye on. Heavy rain, lightning, and that has been really the concern over the last few hours, as well as some pea-sized hail. Here's another look at some of the stronger storms that we're watching in East Georgia. You can see in the North Georgia mountains, we're seeing some heavy rainfall start to develop. Definitely some stronger thunderstorms. This storm that is just north of Athens, that one has a heavy rain that is moving through it right near Jefferson. In fact, I'm going to check the chat again because they were just talking about Jefferson. Pea-sized hail in Jefferson, which is in Jackson County, and that is probably this one cell right there that we are looking at. They have not issued a severe thunderstorm warning, and I don't think they probably will because it is a tiny little cell. Let's take a look at the hail size for ourselves. And it is some pea-sized hail. I think that is very hard for you to see. So I'm just going to circle it to help your eyes out just a little bit. But it's literally right there in Jefferson and in Jackson County. And that's where we saw the lightning strike yesterday happen. So this is going to be a trend that we'll have to continue to watch out for. The emergency manager, he does a great job there of communicating with us and the National Weather Service when there is a concern. As of right now, they're just saying pea-sized hail there in Jefferson. Closer to Athens, right now, the rainfall is headed their way. So not only are they dealing with, unfortunately, the lightning strikes that are very close by, but they're going to be dealing with some heavy rainfall very, very shortly if they're not already dealing with it now. Here is a look at one of our other cameras. This is once again Athens. You can see that the stadium is starting to empty out just a little bit. Once it starts raining, everyone who's still rebelling and not wanting to leave, they will definitely move out of there. Here's at our current temperatures. This is another big part of the weather story right now. After the rainfall moved through, look at our temperatures. Currently, it's 77 degrees here in Atlanta. It's 69 in Canton, it's 68 in Blairsville, and 79 in Athens, 88 down in Thomaston. That tells you a lot there because of the rain. All of that is because of the rain. So this is another one of those days where you just have to kind of take a step back and enjoy the cooler weather while you can. Our temperatures are definitely below average. After we get through tonight, after this rainfall passes through around 7 o'clock, we don't have to worry about severe weather and we don't have to worry about rainfall either. In fact, here's a look at our rain chances over the next 5 days. There are none. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, no rainfall at all. Here is a look at our 7-day forecast just to give you a quick peek at it and what we are seeing. Temperatures today are going to be the warmest throughout the next 7 days. This is another taste of fall. We still should be around 87, so that's close to our average. And I could see our temperatures climbing again as we head into next weekend. But as of right now, the heavy rainfall definitely possible for today. We're starting to see some of that taper off. Some things calm down, but there are still some heavy spots that are moving through portions of East Georgia. We're also seeing those temperatures fall because because of this cold front that's passing through. By Tuesday, our high here in Atlanta could be 81 degrees. And that's here in Atlanta. That's not factoring in what it's going to feel like in the North Georgia mountains. Once again, here's a look at your radar, and so that you all can see exactly what we're looking at and some of the things. Here's a look down in Thomaston. I think this is interesting, where it has not quite rained yet, but the rain is getting closer and closer. So in the next 30 minutes or so, I'll be interested to see what their current temperature is then, because they're 88 right now. So they're going to take a little bit of a dip. And if we're really wondering about those temperatures, our 24-hour temperature change is going to tell a big story too, because it was hot. It was humid yesterday. Yesterday was the first day in like 2 weeks where we actually made it to the 90s, and our 24-hour temperature change shows that we're 15 degrees cooler in Dalton and in Rome. But check out literally where all the strongest of the storms rolled through, and some rainfall still happening right now. Blairsville, Canton, Marietta, Carrollton, 17 degrees cooler right now because of the rainfall. Covington, where that big storm that's moving right now, 20 degrees cooler than what they were this time yesterday. And that's another big thing that we can all take away from the rain, because that provides a little bit of relief when we're talking about the heat here in the South and in Georgia. I'll zoom out just a little bit more so you all can see another big picture of our radar and what we are tracking and what we are seeing on our end. Heavy rainfall still moving through northeast Georgia, really close to Athens. Unfortunately, the UGA game in a lightning delay. They were at halftime. I'm sure that's still going to be extended once halftime is over. Here in Metro Atlanta, we're starting to see some rainfall really start to develop. Not a strong storm just yet, but something that we will have to continue to watch. Also, this storm that is near Conyers, Stockbridge, that is definitely another storm that I'm going to be keeping my eye on, and I'll be bringing you another update. We're going to be doing these live streams periodically so that you all can know exactly what you can expect, what we're looking at right now, because it's raining in multiple places. Here's another live look into Athens right now before that rainfall arrives. No rain. People still sitting out there. Unfortunately, the game is in a lightning delay. And I will show us the Georgia Tech camera as well while we were here so that we can see what's happening in Georgia Tech. In Midtown, they are getting ready to start their game. I don't think that they have started just yet, but they were also in a lightning delay. You can see the rain. The rain has finally arrived in Midtown. It's very, very light. If you look over here in this corner, this is where I can see it the best. Some of that light rain that's moving through Midtown. I will pull up the Decatur camera, let you see what's happening in Decatur. As of right now, we haven't really seen a lot. I love this camera because it gives you a good city view of all of our different skylines. You can kind of see the rainfall a little bit, but it's not anything that's too worrisome. If we take a look into Cobb near our Atlanta Braves and our Truist Park camera, things look better there. We were watching a storm that was off into the distance. That has since cleared out. Really, once the rainfall passes through, you start to dry out. You don't have to worry about any more rainfall coming through. We're not looking at a secondary front. This is it. Once this rainfall passes through and you are in the clear, you will be in the clear. This is looking to Noonan. It was raining there in Noonan earlier. That rain has gone and diminished as well. Here's a look at our University of North Georgia camera in Dahlonega, and it's raining there. There you go. That's a good view of exactly what we're looking at with some of these storms that have rolled through. So just make sure that you wear their wear for the next few hours. I will come on and give you another update in about an hour or so. But for now, I will return you to our radar loops. I'll let you guys see exactly what we are doing. If you're watching us on Facebook, make sure you download our 11 Alive Plus app so you can stay up to date. Those radar loops, they will be ongoing all day, all night, all the time. You can always pop on, view those radar loops, view what's happening, view the forecast track so you can be aware of everything that's happening in your area. If you're following us on any other platform, keep that 11 Alive Plus app up so that you can see what's happening in your area as well. And join our 11 Alive Weather Impact Facebook group. That is a great way for you to see any photos that are posted. And there's a lot of great videos today. I'm going to see if I can do a little button pushing to see if I can pull any of that stuff up. Probably not. But anyway, just make sure you go ahead and download our 11 Alive Plus app and join our 11 Alive Weather Impact Facebook group. Tons of great video of the storms that roll through today. And in the next few hours, we will be drying out, but I'll bring you another update in about an hour or so that you can stay up to date with the latest. But for now, here is our radar loops.